I have 16 years worth of memories. So every now and then something will come back to me and I'm happy to share it with you. And I was thinking about these visits with my mom. And though she was staying with me, I still would visit with her quite often. And in the beginning, she was sharing with me in vivid detail about her dreams. And sometimes I would find her and she would be sort of quiet and reflective. And I would ask her, Mom, what are you thinking about? And I knew, and I think she knew what was going on. The changes were coming. And she would start telling me about her dreams. And in her dreams, she said to me that she felt that God was taking her every night on a different transport through a different time of her life. And she was revisiting old places she had visited or lived in before, as well as people she had met. And they were in detail. And they would go on for quite a while. And I remember I would listen to her, and I think she was just happy to share them with me. And I was so happy to hear them also. And as time went on, she started receiving visits from loved ones who had passed away. She would confuse the TV with real events, but then she was also telling me, oh, I saw my mother today who had passed away for decades before, or even her grandmother or brothers who are gone. And like I said before, she was one of 16, so she was a baby girl. She did have younger brothers, and yet she was the baby girl, so she had a lot of memories on these people. As these visits took place, they would come and go. I remember there were times when I would just come in with her, and we'd have seats, easy chair. She would sit in her easy chair, and I would sit in the sofa next to her. And all I did was hold her hand. And I gathered a great comfort in doing this. She would just look at me and I would look at her. And we would look at the TV, and usually it would be something ridiculous like the Three Stooges or a cartoon show or something that she enjoyed watching. And I remember how emotional it was for me. But I remember I would look at her face and I would study her face. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to remember every detail of your face, Mom, because one day you won't be here. I think I was preparing myself. And she would look at me, and she had the sweetest smile, and she would smile at me. And we would be like this and spend many evenings doing this. As time went on, I expected less from her, but every now and then she would surprise me. And I would get her a visit from before. I remember one day we were obviously in the same house, but she was sitting in the dining room. I was in the living room. And I was watching TV, and she said to me, do you know I was born March 13th, 1929? And my mouth just dropped open. I'm like, oh my gosh, she remembered her birthday, which was incredible because she hadn't mentioned it in so long. She didn't know what day it was, what time it was. And that caught me off guard. But probably one of the most real moments for me was one day she was having a particularly bad day. And I remember how emotional it was because it was bad from start to finish, and there was no reprieve in the middle of it. And I happened to be home all day that day because I was having a day off of work. And I remember she was really carrying on, and she was angry, and she was screaming and just putting up a fuss. She wasn't cooperating as far as her meal time, and she was just hitting, and because they do hit sometimes, and getting very physical. And I remember I was at my wit's end, and I didn't say anything except go along with what was going on. And then I was looking at her, and in the beginning of a rant, and I mean a full-on rage, she stopped and she looked at me and she says, "You know you don't deserve this, don't you?" And again, I was floored. I was like, oh my God. Then she went back to being disruptive again. But that really, really touched my heart, because I think she had a moment of clarity, which was a visit. She came in, and I remember these visits became less and less as the time went on, obviously. This was happening, and there was nothing I could do about it. We were diligent. I was diligent in getting her to the doctors and just caring for her, along with my sister Maria and my daughters and my wife, my son, all of us. My sister Norma also. We just all did what we could when we could. It was just very emotional time for us, but we did treasure those visits whenever they came about. And I remember I mentioned a cat earlier in another story. This cat had so much patience with her, and the cat would jump up on her lap, and my mom would just be kneading its head and its body, and I was thinking, God, that looks like acupuncture therapy to this poor cat. And the cat never moved. It would stay there on my mom's lap, and it became very, very attached to my mom. And I had heard said that with the elderly, especially when they have this condition, they gather a lot of peace and tranquility and softness between their fingers. It could be a blanket, anything soft that they can place between their fingers and feel the comfort of that. And in this case, it was this little kitty cat. I remember when my mom passed away, after we all said our goodbyes, because she died at home with hospice care, who were really quite amazing to us, for us, as a family. And after everybody had said their goodbyes and we were waiting for them to pick my mom up, the cat was around the bed, and I picked her up and I put her on my mom's chest. And the cat went up to my mom and licked her face, and then she laid down, curled up right on my mom's chest. And that was her closure, I think. But there was a little bit more to that even. I remember they came to take her and they took my mom away. I took the cat off of my mom's chest. And I remember the cat remained in the room even after they came by and he took the bed out. For 3 days, the cat didn't come out. It wasn't eating. It wasn't drinking water. It was just laying in that room, saying her goodbyes. And it kept on looking out into the distance. It was almost like this cat was seeing something that wasn't there. And perhaps as my mom was going through this, and I remember my mom would point, and she talked to people. Those were visits from people that had left way before she was going to go, but they would come back to visit her. And perhaps this cat was witnessing my mom's visits. And then after my mom passed away, the cat stopped looking away and just went on its daily life of being a cat. I really appreciate those moments, and there's more to this. There are details that come up sometimes where one of my children will say, "Hey, Dad, do you remember when this happened?" And it has to do with a part of the story. And I do try to remember, and I reflect on it, and it comes back to me. And I'm very, very thankful that I do have these memories, and those visits were special to me, and they were comforting sometimes, always soul-searching. And I never want anybody to think that this was always some kind of a pity party for my family and myself. It wasn't. It was a reality. And we needed each other. And that was so important. And now I'm glad that we can reflect on these moments and enjoy the memories of them. I hope that these stories will help someone along the way in this journey. And they'll have their own to tell. And they'll be beautiful and reflective, and they'll be touching their hearts. And they're private. I just choose to share these because I really want to help people with this so they can understand what our journey was like. I hope you enjoy these.